breaking news.
And that breaking news, Vice President of the United States Kamala Harris is in Alabama for the Selma Bridge Crossing Jubilee. Good afternoon. I'm Bethany Davis.
And I'm Valerie Lawson. The Vice President is landing at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery and then will head on to Selma to commemorate the anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
Right now, let's get you a live look out at Maxwell Air Force Base where we can see Air Force 2 has just touched the ground. We'll see that in just a moment. We'll see Vice President Kamala Harris disembarking from that Air Force 2. From there, she will take a helicopter over to Craig Airfield in Selma and then motorcade to the Edmund Pettus Bridge for today's annual Bridge Crossing Jubilee.
And this will be Harris's second time participating in this event as Vice President. She attended the 2022 Bridge Crossing. Previously, she attended as a presidential candidate. She'll be accompanied by her husband, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff, who will also attend the bridge crossing.
And Vice President Harris will be headlining this. She'll be the headlining speaker at this year's event. She's not the only high-profile guest we're expecting today, though. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland is also in Selma this weekend, accompanied by Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark, who oversees the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. We do have crews in both Montgomery and in Selma to cover every angle of this year's event. We're going to start with WSFA 12 News reporter Julia Avant, who is live at Maxwell Air Force Base as the Vice President is arriving. Julia, it sounds really loud. It sounds like...
Yes, Bethany, we are zooming in right now. Vice President Kamala Harris is about to taxi right in front of us at Air Force 2. Just a little bit of extra information. She arrived at Washington, D.C. at 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time Zone. She is being accompanied not only by the Second Gentleman Douglas Emhoff, but also with the U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Marcia Fudge. She is expected to pull right in front of us, and she is riding in today. She will be greeted by the Montgomery Mayor, Stephen Reed, the Maxwell Air Force Base Commander, Colonel Ryan Richardson, along with the 42nd Air Base Wing Annual Award winners for 2023. So that's an honorable recognition for them today. We were speaking to some people at Maxwell, and it is an honor to be awarded that award, along with meeting the Vice President.
Julia, we know that security is tight anywhere. The Vice President is anywhere near security. It's always tight at Maxwell Air Force Base. But we do know there are a lot of dignitaries who enjoy being face-to-face with her, as we saw Mayor Stephen Reed is there to welcome her to his city of Montgomery. Explain who else you see there and what the feeling is as she's arriving.
It is pretty exciting, Bethany. We have a front row view. Actually, when the plane comes right in front of us, we will actually get to be under the wing. And if you see those 3 helicopters right there, she will be entering there along with members of her team. And a fun fact about that, she originally was supposed to land at the Montgomery Airport, but had to go to Maxwell Air Force Base because she cannot fly on commercial helicopters. She has to fly military helicopters. The reason that being, she will be flying to Selma, and then after that, she will be going to a campaign fundraiser in Birmingham. So she will not be coming back to Maxwell Air Force Base. But so many people here today to greet her, and I imagine she will be greeted by so many more people in Selma. So she has members of her team. There are members of security at Maxwell Air Force Base, and we arrived earlier this morning at 9 a.m. just to get through security. So we've been here for a couple hours, and there have been so many teams making sure that everything is in tip-top shape and the most secure for our Vice President to arrive here in Montgomery to go to Selma. So as you can see right in front of me, if you can, we have the Maxwell Air Force Base Commander, Colonel Ryan Richardson. Mayor Reed is also next to them, along with members of the Secret Service. So they are just awaiting for her now. I believe we have some airmen controlling traffic control getting in their place, so she should be taxiing right in front of us in just minutes. So she has already touched down, and it just takes some time to get right here. So that is where we are at. She should be here any minute now.
And Julia, we're getting two different vantage points here. You have a camera, obviously, where you are, so we can see your viewpoint, but we also have a tower cam that is showing her plane as it's taxiing in. Give us an idea of how far away she is from you right now.
So Bethany, right now, I cannot see her from my point of view, but I was speaking to somebody with the Air Force Base, and when she touches down, she will be taxiing. Oh, I do see a wing right now. I do see Air Force 2. It is coming in right now, and while we wait for her, it is a C-32 Boeing, but it is a customized commercial jetliner, which will have a communication center and a stateroom. So that is her coming in right now, Air Force 2, coming right into Maxwell Air Force Base, where she will be then taken via helicopter to Selma. We have the mayor and Colonel Ryan Richardson awaiting her, along with, yes.
As you're getting your first glimpse at Air Force 2, I know it is a mighty sight to be seen, especially in person. What's your impression of the plane as it rolls towards you?
It's pretty cool to see that it says the United States of America on the side of that. I know that there is a very important person in there along with other officials, so it is quite jaw-dropping to see it in person. You know, you hear about Air Force One and Air Force Two, but to actually see it is quite amazing.
To be clear,
so right now she is just pulling in.
Air Force One and Air Force Two are the same plane. It's simply referred to Air Force One when the President of the United States is flying, and Air Force Two when the Vice President is flying. But this is the same plane that the President would fly, would just be known as Air Force One if it was the President on board. And it is a magnificent sight to see as it rolls in. Such a sign of freedom and liberty for our country. Julia, can you talk a little bit about the feeling, the excitement that's building? You said you've been there now for a few hours. The excitement that's built over the course of the morning.
So we arrived this morning. We met with people of the Secret Service along with members of her team and Maxwell Air Force Base. They were super excited to have her here, of course. Like I mentioned, honorary members of the Air Force Base will be meeting her today. So we went in. They had to check all of our bags. They had to turn on our cameras. And of course, we saw those cute canines, but they were working, so we could not pet them. But as soon as they were done, it took them about 2 hours to check the facility just for us waiting for her. She will not even step foot in that building. They had to check that for a couple hours. And so we see right now in front of us, they are leading her. And pretty soon we will be going under that wing to give you guys a full shot of her greeting our honorary guests as she makes her way to Selma.
All right, thank you so much, Julia. Again, on the plane with the first, Harris is Merrick Garland, the U.S. Attorney General, Marcia Fudge, the Secretary of Housing, and her husband, the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff. All of them came to participate today in the bridge crossing ceremony. And we also saw those 3 helicopters. I thought that was very interesting that she could not fly commercial and that she had to fly a military helicopter. So that will take her over to Selma.
As we're waiting for the Vice President to make her way to the doors and then down the stairs and then onto the helicopter, let's head over to Selma. We do have crews in Selma right now. WSFA 12 News anchor Sally Pitts is live in Selma, right there at the bottom of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where all of the activity will take place once the Vice President arrives there. Sally, I know we probably can't see you right now, but I think we can hear you from the bottom of the bridge. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing right now.
You know, folks have started to gather here at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. If you can see here right in front of the stage, there are several seats that are reserved. We've seen a lot of folks come in. Former Governor Don Siegelman is here. Montgomery's police chief is here. Daryl Albert is along with the fire chief, Mifford Jordan. They're all here today. along with some original foot soldiers. They've already taken their seats right here in front of the stage, waiting for the Vice President's arrival. We know Attorney General for the United States, Merrick Garland, he is already in Selma. He spoke at the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church this morning, and he talked a lot about voting rights. And he said his office continues to work to protect voting rights, and said he's concerned about some bills that he has seen in states across the United States that he feels will affect voting rights. So again, we are just waiting for the Vice President to arrive here in Selma. A lot of folks have already taken their seats. There's also a crowd of folks who have come in and they are waiting. They got here several hours early to make sure that they had a good view of the Vice President when she speaks here in front of the Edmund Pettus Bridge this afternoon. She's going to speak around 2:50 this afternoon, and then she will take that walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You can see they have the bridge blocked off right now. There's a law enforcement truck and then several Department of Transportation trucks. It looks like they're doing a little maintenance or some sort of work there on the Edmund Pettus Bridge before the walk this afternoon. So again, we are just sitting and we are waiting for the Vice President to arrive and for the ceremony to get underway here. There's been a light drizzle of rain all morning here in Selma, but it doesn't seem to be dampening anyone's spirits. Bethany, Valerie.
All right. Thank you so very much, Sally. We want to go back to Maxwell Air Force Base, where the Vice President has arrived, about to get off that plane and head over to one of those helicopters so she could head over to Selma as well. On the plane with her, Merrick Garland, the U.S. Attorney General, Marsha Fudge, Secretary of Housing, Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman. All of them will be heading over to Selma in just a few minutes, and there to greet them at Maxwell Air Force Base, the mayor of Montgomery, Stephen Reed, and also officials from Maxwell Air Force Base. Bethany.
We are starting to see a few people right there at the door. We do know that it takes a little while for everything to get settled and for them to give the green lights for everyone on board to get out of their seats. It's just like when you and I fly a commercial airplane. It takes a few minutes for them to get the plane settled, to turn off that seatbelt sign, and for everybody to get up and make their way to the doors. But we do have reporter Julia Avant, who is on the ground right there on the tarmac. I don't know how well you can hear us, Julia, because I know that plane must be very loud. But what about the excitement of inviting the Vice President of the United States right here to Montgomery, Alabama?
Surprisingly, I can hear you loud and clear, Bethany, thankfully. Yes, it is super exciting. As soon as this plane landed, there is actually 2 doors to this plane. So people traveling, Secret Service, and just members of her team just piled out, awaiting her departure from the plane. So as you can see, Mayor Reed, Colonel Ryan Richardson, along with those honorary winners of the 42nd Air Base Wing Annual Award winners from 2023, they are awaiting her arrival. Any second now, she should be popping through. Super exciting. I think everybody here is just super excited. The fact that a huge leader of our United States of America is here today to honor this special day for us here in Selma and the state of Alabama and this whole country. And the whole civil rights movement is super moving that she not only again is coming, she came back in 2022, she came back this year as vice president. Last year she spoke about the importance of voting rights. This year we are told she will speak on the legacy of civil rights movement, the ongoing goal to achieve justice for all, and the fight for freedom, which I know here in Alabama we are currently talking about with just things going on statewide and nationwide. So it is exciting to hear her speak today in Selma, and I know she will be going to another campaign event, fundraiser in Birmingham. So yep, as soon as she gets out of this plane, she will be on a military helicopter over way to where Sally is in Selma, where we will hear her speak.
And I think it's interesting that you said earlier that we're in a waiting stage right now. They're on the plane. They will get off the plane and get onto one of those helicopters. But even once they get to Selma, it is even more waiting.
It's a trip. So we do know she'll take those helicopters. There will be 3 of those. We're not exactly sure which one she'll fly right now. The security doesn't necessarily want us to know that right now. She will hop on one of those helicopters. All 3 of them will move over to Craig Airfield. But you know, Craig Airfield is not all that close to downtown Selma and the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So it will still take some time for her to land the helicopter, to get off the helicopter, to get into the motorcade, and then make her way. I imagine with all the lights lights and sirens. It'll still probably take about 10 to 15 minutes from the time she gets off that helicopter to the time she actually arrives in Selma. She will be delivering.
There she is.
And there she is.
Vice President Kamala Harris and the second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, first getting off the plane, heading over to Selma for today's bridge crossing Jubilee.
And we know that she will shake hands with Mayor Stephen Reed at first as he welcomes her, the official welcome to Montgomery, Alabama from Vice President Kamala Harris. There are also some dignitaries from Maxwell Air Force Base, some of the top leaders at the base there who are ready to welcome her to Maxwell Air Force Base.
Yeah, having a little chit-chat time there between the two of them. Both of them will probably be heading over to, as the mayor as well, heading over to Selma today.
I would imagine so. I always wonder what exactly they're talking about.
I wish I could read lips.
I know the mayor and the vice president have met before. You know, she was here a couple of years ago. She was here as a U.S. senator in 2018. So there have been some meetings. I know she's not unfamiliar with this area. She's been here before and has probably met some of these people before. But I do always wonder what exactly I would say to her
I know.
if she were
Hello,
shaking my hand right now. I wonder how long they've preparing. They've been preparing their remarks as she stepped off the airplane.
I'm not sure, but I would imagine that is Marcia Fudge, Secretary of Housing, who is also greeting the mayor right now, and also Maxwell officials. I mentioned earlier that Merrick Garland was also on the plane. He's not on the plane. He's actually already in Selma. He spoke at a church earlier today, but he is expected to march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
He is still there and is expected, and there is a big crowd in Selma waiting for the vice president's arrival, waiting to hear what she has to say before that annual walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which is in Selma such a sacred memory for so many people. We know that there are a good number of people who were original foot soldiers that crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge that are still making that cross every year today. And to have someone like Vice President Kamala Harris to make that journey across the bridge with them to commemorate is incredibly meaningful.
Absolutely, and we can only imagine that some of the things that she will talk about today will be to honor the many foot soldiers that were involved in Bloody Sunday and who fought for civil rights and the Voting Rights Act. Honor the legacy of John Lewis, who is no longer with us. He always came to Selma and always made that march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And of course, he's from Alabama. You know, so we can only imagine that she will honor some of those things and talk about the work that still needs to be done when it comes to voting rights.
We know that it's going to take a little time for her to get settled on to that helicopter. Julia, if you can still hear us, this was your first time to see the vice president in person. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
You know, last year, Bethany, I wasn't even assigned to President Biden, and I was just so excited to wait 5 hours to see him walk to a podium. Now this year, being under the wing of Air Force Two was pretty jaw-dropping. It is pretty amazing to see, you know, her speak for almost a minute to Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed. Wouldn't we like to know what they were speaking about, along with the second gentleman talking to him as well? So of course, if I get the chance, I will definitely ask the mayor, you know, what was that conversation? What does it mean to have her here at such a time for the state of Alabama and such an honorable day here in Selma and in the state and in the country? So this will be something that I will never forget for sure. And I think it's just exciting for all of us here in Alabama to know that the vice president is here.
Julia, we can see the helicopters right here. We did see her, I think we saw her board one of them earlier. There are 3 of them. What's your understanding about the takeoff process here?
So members of her team, if you can see me, I don't know if Ted can get me in this shot right now, but we have to the left of us is where Vice President is right now, along with members of her team. To the right, which I believe I heard one of her press representatives say that people in the press traveling with her got on that helicopter. So I think they're getting situated right now. Once they get situated, they will then land in Selma, where they will then be taken to Selma. I know that people are waiting right now for her to give her speech, but as of now, I don't know when they are going to take off. Right now we still have the colonel and the mayor waiting for her to lift off. But Air Force 2 is right next to us. So we will keep you updated. It looks like one of the pilots are getting on, or members of the military. I think they're getting it situated.
I know that it probably takes about an hour roughly to drive from Maxwell Air Force Base over to Craig Field. I imagine the helicopter can probably make the trip a little quicker.
Yes.
The vice president's schedule is scheduling her to land at Craig Airfield at 1:40 this afternoon. So that's really only about 40 minutes from now. That will be a little bit quicker of a trip. But as we said, it's not a quick and easy trip to get from Craig Airfield all the way over to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. However, she will have the lights and sirens of the motorcade to help her move through town.
Yes, you could see the mayor leaving the airspace right there, and you can see that they are sitting inside the helicopter, the military helicopter that will take them to Craig Airfield in Selma, where again, Bethany, you said they will get into the motorcade, then drive over to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And even when they get there will also be more waiting. We've just got to wait till everyone gets in place. And I'm hoping that the weather holds off. It looks like it's a little dreary over there, so if you're heading that way, you may want to pack a poncho or an umbrella or something just in case.
It hasn't been the prettiest day or the prettiest weather for flying, although it's not raining and it's not storming, so we'll be thankful for that. And it does look like the bridge crossing will be able to happen without any major downpours, but a little umbrella or rain jacket might not hurt anyone. We can see the propellers starting to pick up their speed. That was a great shot Ted had earlier inside the helicopter. We could actually see those folks buckling their seatbelts as they were preparing for takeoff. And Julia mentioned the 3 helicopters. I imagine, one of them is a security and advance team. She does have a team that travels with her that goes ahead of her to make sure that everything is safe and secure, and just the way she likes it. Sometimes it all even comes down to, the sandwiches that she likes to have on board. And then there's a press team that also travels whenever the president or vice president travels. There's a press team to cover those events and those journeys and adventures. And then the vice president herself is on this helicopter right here. It will be, we're guessing, is about a 30-minute helicopter flight to get to Craig Airfield by around 1:40 this afternoon.
Yes, they arrived in Montgomery probably, about 5-10 minutes ago. Got off of Air Force 2, boarded the helicopter. Before that, they had a brief conversation with Montgomery Mayor Stephen Reed and also officials with Maxwell Air Force Base before getting onto the helicopter. We did fail to mention that she does travel with the press corps, so they were with her as well on Air Force 2. And such a great shot inside the helicopter right there. You can see, good shot there.
What an incredible view as they do all those last minute checks to make sure everything is safe and make sure everything is tidied up before they take flight. This helicopter, now officially known as Marine 2, now that the vice president is on board. We did see the propellers pick up speed. We can even see how they're distorting the air around the helicopter a little bit in that camera shot. So we do expect liftoff really any moment now.
And then it is on to Craig Airfield in Selma, where they will take the motorcade to the bridge, Edmund Pettus Bridge. And we saw earlier where Sally was standing, where we couldn't see Sally, where we could hear Sally, where people are starting to gather for her to hear her speak. There will be a number of other dignitaries from around this area who will join the vice president in Selma today for the 59th Bridge Crossing Jubilee.
I'm fascinated that we can still see inside the helicopter, even this close to the helicopter lifting off from the tarmac there. But really impressed with the shots Ted's able to get. He must be a lot closer than we've ever been before.
Yes, Merrick Garland, as we said earlier, is in Selma. He was speaking today, so he will also join the Vice President and the First Gentleman and Marcia Fudge, the Secretary of Housing, for the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And there will be so many other dignitaries that we have seen time and time again come back to Selma to participate in the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. This is the 59th year since the Voting Rights Act was approved.
Incredible, and we know next year, obviously, the 60th anniversary will be an incredible anniversary, and
huge,
plans are already in the works to mark the 60th. But you mentioned those dignitaries and the people, even the original foot soldiers who come back year after year, because it is such. It's a special memory, but it's special because of what it did in our country. It literally changed the world where we live today. That was a time when about 500 protesters were marching across the bridge in 1965 for their voting rights. And at the top of that bridge were met with about 50 Alabama state troopers who brutally beat them when they refused to turn around. And the coverage of that day that's now known as Bloody Sunday and the outrage that sparked from that coverage, well, directly resulted in the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which is why we come back year after year to mark that walk across the bridge, and then 2 weeks later to finish the walk all the way from Selma to Montgomery.
Helicopter taking off, heading to Craig Field in Selma, where the Vice President and the First Gentleman and the Secretary of Housing will join others as they prepare for the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to commemorate the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. As you mentioned, there will be foot soldiers who will come back from all over the country, but we've got a number of foot soldiers who are still in town, who will also be there as well. And it will almost be as a reunion because you'll have so many people coming back to commemorate what happened and to remember Bloody Sunday and to talk about those stories that got the Voting Rights Act passed.
I think it's interesting. One of the organizers we spoke to this week actually referred to this as something of a family reunion because it does bring a lot of people together on a regular basis to remember a tough memory, but also to celebrate what came out of such a really difficult day. Our WSFA 12 News anchor Sally Pitts is live right now at the bottom of the Edmund Pettus Bridge as we watch the Vice President and Marine 2 start to move away from the tarmac, and we expect it to lift off anytime soon, anytime now. Sally, talk a little bit about what you're seeing there at the bottom of the bridge and how the crowd is building and their energy as well.
Yeah, the crowd is definitely growing as we get closer to the Vice President's arrival. I can tell you, Bethany and Valerie, security is tight here in Selma with the Vice President's visit. We saw two who we believe are snipers walk up the Edmund Pettus Bridge just minutes ago. You can still see them kind of in the middle of the bridge preparing for the Vice President's arrival, getting into position. Then on the Selma Times-Journal building up on the roof, it's right next to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We see two officers up there as well. I'm spinning around to see if we see more officers. I'm sure there are more positioned on the top of these buildings to make sure the Vice President is safe when she is here in Selma. There are also a number of law enforcement officers on the ground. Security was tight when we came through. We had to go through a number of security checks to get in. The Secret Service had its dog sniff our bags. Then the Secret Service agents went through those bags by hand. After that, we had to go through a metal detector as well. And once we got in here, we were told we could not get out. So security is definitely tight in Selma for the Vice President's visit. As we mentioned, this crowd is growing. Former Governor Don Ziegelman right now is speaking to, he's kind of bought, but I believe that a civil rights attorney, Ben Crump. Montgomery's police chief, Daryl Albert, is here along with the fire chief, Mifford Jordan. Original foot soldiers are here. Tuskegee Mayor Tony Haygood, he is sitting off to a side, another reserved seating area. There are dozens of reserved seats here. The Reverend Al Sharpton has a reserved seat. He will be sitting next to Congresswoman Terry Sewell. We have a number of U.S. representatives who will be here in attendance as well. So this crowd is certainly growing as we get closer to the Vice President's arrival.
Well, Sally, I think it's going to happen very soon. We see helicopters in the air right now. They are still over Maxwell Air Force Base, but they are leaving that airspace quite swiftly and heading towards Craig Airfield in Selma. We expect them to land there in about 30 minutes.
Sally, talk a little bit about the weather conditions, because I know a lot of people are watching this broadcast right now. They're probably making their way to Selma. Tell us a little bit about what the weather feels like right about now.
It's comfortable as far as the temperature. It's not too hot. It's definitely not cold. I mean, say it was kind of on the warm side, but it has been raining, kind of a drizzle on and off all morning. So really kind of a gloomy day out here, but the rain has stopped for now. So we're appreciative of that. So you definitely wanted a rain jacket or a poncho. I'm very thankful Brady Talbert packed an extra poncho for me to wear today, because I did leave mine back in Montgomery, but you definitely wanted a rain jacket or a poncho if you were here. But most people did not bring one in. But the crowd behind us as well, onlookers, folks who just came in, who are beyond those security barriers, it is starting to grow as well. A number of people are coming in, a lot of them wearing purple shirts that say the march continues, kind of emphasizing that the fight for voting rights continues for them. We saw a group come in from Kansas. They rode on a bus all the way in from Kansas to be here for this moment. So there are people here from all over the country, everyday Americans who want to be here for this celebration.
It is a special celebration, and it's not just because the Vice President is going to be here, but we do know a lot of people. That is a draw for a lot of people who are going to be there. We can see the helicopters heading your way, Sally, so we'll let you get prepared for her arrival in about 30 to 45 minutes in Selma. We're going to take a break here as the Vice President travels, and of course, we will bring this to you live as soon as the Vice President touches down at Craig.